ATSTs! ATSTs! ATSTs!
Hey, what's up, Star Wars fans? Josh here, RH Show. I wanted to talk to you about today's episode, Mandalorian Episode 4. And I got up this morning, checked out YouTube like I always do to see what the fresh content of the day is, and I see a lot of Star Wars reviewers talking about how Mandalorian Episode 4 got woke. And I'm like, oh, well, this is supposed to be the episode where they introduce that female character they've been teasing for a while. In my opinion, it didn't get woke. I mean, it's a female character who's very action-oriented, but a very generic character so far. I suppose that character has room to grow. She reminds me of Tulsi Gabbard, so I'm just going to call her Tulsi. I don't even remember what her name is, but she's a very, sort of generic character. I would say I'm disappointed with this episode. Very disappointed, honestly. And it has nothing necessarily to do directly with them having this female character in there. It has more to do with so many other things that happen in the episode. To me, this episode felt like a filler episode, and there's only 8 episodes in the season, so they don't have room to be doing filler episodes like this. So it reminded me of a filler episode from a Star Trek, away team episode, you know what I mean, where they go down to a planet and get involved with some species that's having a conflict and they have to get involved to help them. That's what it's very generic, very paint by numbers episode, and that was really disappointing to me. And they just didn't carry the tone of the first 3 episodes, which were excellent. And there's a lot of things that happened in the episode that really didn't make any sense to me. So let's just get started on the slideshow. So we get introduced to these schlubs, who are just these simpleton farmers on this planet. And the Mandalorian happens to land on a part of the planet that's really close by to where their village is. And you would think the Mandalorian, considering the situation he's in with Baby Yoda, which is essentially on the lam, he stole the bounty, you know what I mean? He has this affection for Baby Yoda and wanted to save him from whatever horrible things Werner Herzog had planned for him. So he absconds. He kidnaps him essentially, and looks for a desolate planet in order to hide out. But what does he do? He lands within 1 day's travel of this village, apparently. So we get introduced right away to these people and the situation they're in, which is such a textbook science fiction show thing to do. They're simple folks, farmers, just trying to live a simple life, a small clan of people. And nearby, there's a tribe of villains, and they're called raiders in this episode. And somehow they have a ATST, I guess that they somehow acquired from the now defunct Empire. And basically what they do is they rape, burn, and pillage this small little community and steal their food and blow shit up and just basically wreak havoc. And, so they're an oppressed people living in fear. And essentially, we get to see that. We see the raiders come in and steal their food and do all these terrible things. And it's basically setting up a little bit of a backstory of what the episode's going to be about. And then we get a shot of Mandalorian and Baby Yoda coming to the planet. And, we enjoy these little scenes of Mandalorian and Baby Yoda together. And they're cute. Essentially, they land on the planet. He's like, you stay here. I want you to stay here. Does Baby Yoda even understand English? I don't know. But what languages does he understand? Because we've never heard him speak a single word. But I digress. He says, you stay here, but then you see the door come down, and there he is. And he's like, oh, what the hell? Come with me. Which doesn't really make sense because he knows that there might be bounty hunters after him to get Baby Yoda back. So You think he would insist on him staying on the ship, but no. He's like, what the hell? Cute shot of Baby Yoda, of course. And then we get treated to this terrible scene, which is he makes his way to the village, I guess on foot. So I guess they were walking through the woods for a whole day. Okay. Why would he land his ship that far away? Why wouldn't he just land it a 20-minute walk away, you know? So they're walking through the woods for a whole day, because it's established later on that it takes a whole day's travel on a really slow-moving speeder to get to where he is. So that makes no sense. But they arrive at this, like, cantina, which is, like, right away I'm like, this is like an advertisement for Star Wars Land, you know? Like Galaxy's Edge. This is like a commercial for Galaxy's Edge. It's really cringy, and it feels really out of place, and it feels really lazy, and this actress is terrible. The dialogue is terrible, and I was like not feeling it at all. But essentially he's just ordering some food. Why do they have this like fancy restaurant cantina spot? I mean, it's a really small little village. It's a little farming community. But yet they have this like restaurant where they serve people who I guess just stop through, like it's a food court in the mall. You know, it just doesn't make sense to me at all. But he orders some food, and then he's like, you know, who's this woman in the corner? Like, why would he give a shit? What? Maybe his, you know, guild instincts, his bounty hunter instincts are kicking in and saying there's something up with this chick. But he asks the waitress, you know, what's her story? Of course, he gives her money, extra money, but she doesn't offer up any information other than she doesn't look like a logger to me. Okay. Anyway, he looks away, looks back, she's gone. Then he leaves Baby Yoda sitting in this cantina by himself, knowing that they're wanted fugitives from the guild. And he's on a planet with other people, other unsavory characters hiding out on this planet. He doesn't know these people. He doesn't know what these people want or what they do or how they can conduct themselves. But he leaves a harmless infant sitting at the table by themselves, flips a coin to the waitress that says, watch him for me. It's like, that's just like bad. That's, you know, poor decision making, if you ask me, but okay. Because he goes outside, he wants to trail his character and find out what their story is, I guess, for whatever reason. You think he would just be sticking, you know, he would just be keeping to themselves, you know, like he would be trying to be as invisible as possible. I mean, which is already hard enough to do when you're walking around in Mandalorian armor. But he wouldn't be, especially go looking for trouble, stirring up trouble with unsavory looking characters who God knows what they're into. But he does it anyway. Leaves Baby Yoda to be babysat by the waitress, like, okay. And then she jumps him outside the restaurant. She sneaks up on him. He never sees it coming. Element of surprise. They get in a tussle. I mean, he cracks her in the face really hard a couple of times. He punches her, kicks her, rolls around with her, cracks her in the face a couple of times. Doesn't even phase her, which is kind of like, yeah, sure. You know, they're pretty equally matched up. It seems like, you know, she gets over on him a couple times, and they, you know, pull their blasters on each other, and they look over, and there's Baby Yoda sipping on some bone broth, which was a funny moment. I thought that was really, every time he pops up, I always seem to get a good chuckle, which is a good thing. It's, you know, a good tension breaker. But he was just standing there watching them fight, and I guess the waitress just said, whatever, I don't give a shit. I'm only here to, like, deliver space beers to people, and I don't give a shit about Baby Yoda's. So he was able to get away from the waitress pretty easily. You think Mandalorian would be kind of pissed about that. But then we cut to a scene. They're back inside the restaurant now. And they're just hashing it out like good old friends. And he just beat the piss out of her. And she's doesn't even have a bloody nose. I mean, she's not even out of breath. And she's being very cordial for somebody she just had a confrontation with. But she explains to him that she only did that because she heard that he was in the guild. Or she assumed that he was part of the guild. Maybe she thought there was a bounty out on her because she had once been a member of the rebels. And now, I guess, since the Galactic War is over, she's retired. Fine. Very congenial meeting they're having here all of a sudden, which I thought was strange and took me out of the story, but they're delivering exposition to us. And then he makes his way back. I guess he travels for another day once they have something to eat, back to his ship. And then these two goofballs who are from the tribe, the farmer community, want to hire the Mandalorian to take care of these unsavory characters that live outside their village. I guess they figure the Mandalorian's the best chance they have. I mean, a Mandalorian up against a whole tribe of raiders and an ATST. But they have some credits they offer him. He says it's not enough money. Oh, by the way, they arrive at his ship after a day of travel on the slowest moving speeder I've ever seen in my life. Like, you could literally, like, a person in a wheelchair could beat this thing in a race. Like, it's ridiculous how slow it is. And it makes no sense to have a big flatbed speeder like that, like, going through the forest, which would be really hard to navigate. Like, through thick forest trees, fallen over trees, unless they have like a really established, wide, beaten path from their village to just happens to go straight to where Mandalorian's ship is. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense logistically, but okay. It would make more sense if they like swooshed up on some speeder bikes, or something. Like they just had some junky speeder bikes, but they don't do that. All right, okay, whatever. So they're soliciting him to take care of their problem. And he's not interested until they mention, we've got lodging. Or, we're in the middle of nowhere and, something. Weren't you listening to us? We're telling you we're like these nobody farmers that live in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, well, maybe I can hide out with you or something. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all because he would want to be, he's got lodging. He's got his ship. They're hiding out. You'd think it would just make camp in his ship. Why would he want to get involved with these people and their problems and draw attention to them, to themselves? It makes no sense at all. But apparently when he says in the middle of nowhere, when they say in the middle of nowhere, he is like, okay, fine, well, help me unpack my shit and I'll come with you guys. All right, yeah, okay, if you say so. So then he decides that he needs some help. So he enlists Tulsi Gabbard here with a bag of credits to join him in helping them out with their problem. Yet they don't know who or what the issues is. They don't know specifically who the people are that bothering these farmers, but they have to. She agrees to help them. They go back to the village on their little slow speeder there, and eventually, they do a little investigating and they find out that it is these raiders, but it's also an ATST, and they're like, well, we'll get to that in a minute. This nice widower lady with a daughter decides that Mandalorian, is okay to stay with them in their house. No, I think she says it's the barn, right? Turn my phone off. She says it's a barn. She's staying in their barn, whatever. It's a farm. I guess it makes sense, but it's a wicker barn. And she's bothered. This woman, this widower chick, is like on Mandalorian, like stink on shit. And she's just like following him around. And I thought it was really weird that her daughter pops up and he like all of a sudden decides to whip around and pull his blaster out like she startled him. Like he knows he's in a village full of men, women, and children. Like why would he be on that much on edge? And well, the little daughter wants to play with Baby Yoda, and he says okay, and then he's conceding into her, wants her to have fun with little Baby Yoda, whatever, fine. But then she wants to take Baby Yoda outside of the barn, and he says no. And then the woman steps in and she says, it'll be okay. What? Why is it okay all of a sudden? Like, Mandalorian, first of all, they're fugitives from the guild. They're trying to hide out. He's gotten involved with these people, and he knows that there's a group of hostiles after these people who are ransacking this village at the drop of a hat. So no, why would she say that? It's not okay. Maybe she would say, it is probably best if Baby Yoda stays here with you. You're his protector, and it's really necessarily safe out there. I mean, they were just blowing up our swamp like 5 minutes ago, and there's an AT-ST stomping around out there. I mean, little Baby Yoda's small. I mean, come on. Makes no sense at all. He lets Baby Yoda wander out there with the children, and it just doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah, I got a little ahead of myself before, but essentially they go on a little investigation. They just to check out what these raiders are doing, and they've been stealing all their food, and then they discover, oh shit, they've got an AT-ST as well that they must have gotten from the Empire, and those things kick ass, right? So they go back to the village to report to say, why didn't you tell us you had an AT-ST? This is like a hopeless cause. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard here tells them she was in the rebellion and she saw an AT-ST take out a whole like squadron of rebel troops. And she's like, it's hopeless. You guys got to move. And okay, fine. But then Mandalorian says, well, not if we show them how to defend themselves. It's like a whole group of rebels who have been trained and been fighting in a war for God knows how long can't fend off one of these things, but a bunch of like farmers with pointy sticks who don't even know to point the pointy end at the enemy are going to be able to take out an AT-ST and a whole clan of raiders. Like, again, it doesn't make any sense. What would have made sense is Mandalorian scooping up Baby Yoda and being like, fuck this, we're out of here. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to go to the other side of the planet. But I know they're trying to show us that Mandalorian has a heart, and that, this is very like spaghetti Western. It is very spaghetti Western. I mean, Clint Eastwood did this in movies a lot. All right. So this is not reinventing the wheel, but I'm just saying some of the logistical things here don't make any sense. He's like, well, if a whole squadron of fucking rebel soldiers can't fend off an AT-ST, then how in the hell can a bunch of farmers with pointy sticks and some leftover weapons off his ship? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, but okay, we can show them the way. So then we get a montage, right? And he goes, who here can shoot a blaster or whatever? Who here can shoot? And the widow with the daughter raises her hand, the only one out of all these fucking simpletons. Somehow she knows how to shoot a blaster. Like, what sense does that make? I don't understand why that's important unless it's just something they threw in to help the plot along, I just don't understand. I just don't get it. She raises her hand. I'm the one lone person out of these 40 people, these farmers, the widow, that knows how to shoot a gun. So we get into the montage of them teaching the village people how to guard themselves, how to fight with pointy sticks, right? Whoops. Sorry, guys. With pointy sticks. And it's so ridiculous because they don't even know which end of the... One of the men, the farmers in the group, they're all practicing how to, I guess, impale somebody, with a pointy stick. And he's holding it backwards. And she has to walk up and take it out of his hands and turn it around so the pointy... They don't even have enough common sense to know what the pointy end goes towards the enemy. I mean, it's like lazy. You know, it's like, oh, we got to show them doing something. We got to show them like learning how to fight. So what's the laziest thing I can think of? I don't know if this is Bryce Dallas Howard here. Bryce Dallas Howard is Ron Howard's daughter. You probably know her from Jurassic World, the redhead. You know, I mean, she's an actress. She's an okay actress, and she's dabbling in directing now, and they gave her an episode. I wonder if that was in Ron Howard's contract to reshoot Solo, that they had to give his daughter an episode of this show. Wouldn't surprise me, the nepotism that goes around Hollywood, but I don't know if it's her directing that's making this episode terrible, because I think it's the writing too, and that's Jon Favreau's fault. This is such a cookie cutter paint by numbers episode. It was really disappointing, and it's just really predictable, you know. So anyway, then Tulsi Gabbard and Mandalorian have to go on a side mission to lure out the enemy, which is another stupid thing. But they decide to do that by going to their little fishery or whatever, where they keep all the stolen food, and they're going to blow it up. And Mandalorian uses this little explosive device that makes noise that I would say is the equivalent to like a iPhone ringtone. And like, what sense does it make at all to have an explosive device that makes noise like that? I mean, it just kind of chimes, and then it like ramps up, you know, it gets higher and higher and louder, like, you know, because it's supposed to let you know like when it's going to explode, and it's literally just there to create tension in the scene. It's like no Mandalorian would ever use this. So it was just, he'd be like, I'm going to set this to like, you know, a 1 minute fuse or whatever, and I just, you know I need to leave this space before before 1 minute. So it doesn't really make any sense that they would use sound. I just thought that was like peculiar, but it was such an obvious device for the scene. Anyway, they succeed. You know, they get attacked while they're in there, but they overcome them. Then they blow it up to succeed. Then the ATST follows them back, and the rest of the tribe, the raiders, follow them back to the little village. And they had set up all this shit, these barricades, which are essentially a bunch of logs tied together, and a bunch of rubbish to keep out an ATST. I mean, I don't even think it could keep out the raiders, but apparently all this crap is going to keep out an ATST. There's a clear hole, like right up the middle, that they run. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just really stupid. We get a wide shot. It's kind of dark. It's hard to see, but we got the villagers on the left, the farmers on the left, and we got the ATST and the raiders on the right. And look how big that thing is. I mean, this ATST would tear through this fucking village with no effort at all. I mean, I'm just not convinced at all that this would work, you know? What they're trying to do is lure the ATST into this swampy moat they have guarding the outside of their little farming village. And so, ATSTs are just a vehicle. They're driven by people, like by soldiers, and this thing, they try to imbue it with some, monster-esque attributes, like the way it moves, and it's almost like it thinks. It's hard to describe, but they try to give it some animalistic attributes. It even kind of like pulsates a little bit, like it's breathing, which I thought was weird. I'm like, it's just a machine, But it walks up to the moat and it looks down, and somehow the people driving it know it's a trap. It's like the classic cliche trope where they're like, come on, come on. Like, it's like Predator almost, like, come on, come into our trap. And it lifts one foot and then it stops and it thinks about it and it puts the foot back, like it's too smart to know it's a trap. Really cliche, really predictable. It's standing there on the edge of this moat, right? And so Tulsi Gabbard decides to grab the Mandalorian's disintegrator and attack it. And so here we have the slide here where she nails it through its, one of its portholes, its right eye, and knocks it off balance enough it falls into the moat, and essentially just that destroys it. But then I guess Mandalorian decides to use another one of those explosive devices to double tap it and blow it up. So, and then we have a real quick wrap up of the farmers fighting off the raiders like it was nothing. Like they have been warriors their whole lives, and a bunch of sharpened sticks just killed these like hardened criminal, violent alien. Like it's just lazy. It was just lazy. So it's really disappointing to say this because I really like to show up to this point, but with no effort at all, they just overcome them and kill them. I think you actually get to see one farmer impaling one of the aliens, which I don't think we've ever seen an impaling on Star Wars before, but okay. And that's it. It's over. They win. It was that easy. And then so they're just chilling out after. They've been hanging back for a while. They're having a couple beers. And she's like, what happens if you take off the... Oh, first of all, the widower, the woman who apparently is all of a sudden in love with the Mandalorian, wants to have his babies, is like, hey, come on inside, let me do something for you. And he's like, nah, no thanks. She walks off, and then him and Tulsi Gabbard are having a beer, and she's like, what happens if you take off the helmet? And he's like, well, nothing really, but I can never put it back on. She's like, oh, that's it? Why don't you stay here and, start a family with this strange woman who you don't even know, who's got a kid, and be a simpleton farmer with these people living in the swamps? Like, why would she ever recommend that? First of all, having the helmet on is like essentially like part of his religion. It's like saying, why don't you just take off that yarmulke? Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like it's part of his way. It's part of his religion. So why would he take the helmet off? And second of all, why would she even suggest it? She should have like some respect for his religion, but why would she knows what kind of, he's a mercenary, he's a bounty hunter, he's a Mandalorian, like why would he want to settle down with these people and live a boring life farming shrimp? It doesn't make any sense at all. It's stupid. It's just so dumb. But anyway, he's like, nah, it's, not for me or whatever. Then this is a moment at the end of the episode where he walks over to the woman, I guess to thank her and say goodbye, but she's trying to put out, she's just trying to say, why don't you stay here with me? What sense does it make at all that she would want him to stay? She's never even seen his face. Why? Because he's taking care of a little baby Yoda, and so all of a sudden he's a good guy? I mean, she doesn't know what kind of person this is. She doesn't know if he's murdered people for money. You don't know what kind of problems this guy is going to bring onto your little village. Why is she really that desperate? There isn't a single guy in that little farming community that she could be with. She's an attractive woman. Why does she want the Mandalorian? But anyway, supposedly she's in love with him, or when she wants him to stay. And she tries to take his helmet off. And he's like, nah, I'm not having any of that. And he's like, oh, so by the way, I'm going to dump off this baby on you. Like, they came all the way to this planet to hide out, but then he decides, well, we've got to leave because we just bring trouble here, and I've got to go do my thing, and I'm just going to dump this baby on you. And she's like, oh, okay, I'm just going to raise him as my own after you just rejected me. Makes no sense. How would she even know to raise Baby Yoda? Like, how would she even have any knowledge of how to do that? Stupid. Doesn't make any sense. But he's like, I'm going to dump him on you and take off, all right? And then she tries to take his helmet off, which is also against... she knows it's part of his religion. Why would she do that? It's just fucking rude, man. Like, she wants to humanize him. This scene right here, like, I was watching this. I think I threw this in here because I was watching this. And this is the first time that the Mandalorian lost his cool. And it was just like a corny dude in a Star Wars costume. Like, up until this point, like, I was really buying the whole awesome Mandalorian thing and the man without a face, spaghetti western vibe and everything. And this moment, I was like, this is corny and stupid, and this guy looks dumb, And it ruined a little bit of the magic for me, honestly. Anywho, then we see that there's a bounty hunter who has a fob, which is a tracking device, has found them on this planet. And he's aiming to kill little baby Yoda, and we get a little moment of tension, but we know it's not going to happen because they're not going to kill off baby Yoda. And then we hear a shot ring off in the distance, and Tulsi Gabbard shot and killed him just in the nick of time, so no worries there. And he just realizes, you know what? Now all of a sudden he realizes that if I stay here with baby Yoda, because we're fugitives, we're just going to bring more problems on these people, and people are going to die, and it's just a bad idea, so we just should leave. Well, why not go to some uninhabited part of the planet and just hide out there? Why did you get involved with these people at all in the first place? I mean, yeah, you helped them out with their problem, you did a good thing, I guess, but did any of those people die in that battle? I mean, it doesn't show anything at all. But he's, is the Mandalorian ever meant to just settle down? I mean, at least before, maybe it was one day when he retires, but, he's an active Mandalorian. He just got his armor together. Why would he want to settle down in a swamp and raise a baby Yoda? I mean, sure, he's got affection for the baby Yoda. He doesn't want it to get hurt, but he doesn't want to raise it as his father. I don't know. Shit's just not adding up. Anyway, he says his goodbyes. There's a heartfelt moment where the kids are going to miss baby Yoda, yada, yada. And we end on a shot of baby... Oh, he also says to Tulsi Gabbard, until we run into each other again, which we know is going to happen at some point. Obviously, she's not... This is her one and only episode. She's going to come back at some point, I'm sure, and save his ass. But then we end on a cute shot of baby Yoda, and that's it. And this just felt like a filler episode from the Clone Wars mixed with Star Trek. It was paint by numbers. It was lazy. It was just really disappointing, man. It's just too bad. We're still 3 out of 4 really good. This just could have been an off episode. I didn't really think Bryce Dallas Howard did a great job directing this. It was fine, I guess, but that Deborah Chow chick did way better on the last episode. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get back on track the next episode, because I don't like this do-gooder version of Mandalorian. You can't humanize them too much. You know what I mean? Because that facade slips away, and I saw that for a moment, and it was like I didn't. And then the magic died a little bit for me. So they need to bring it back. They need to. I'm hoping there's just an off episode. We still got 4 more episodes to go. So, it could be fine. I mean, it's only 8 episodes of the season, though. So you can't have too many of these bad ones in there. But we've seen the potential of the show. I'm still hopeful. I don't think it's woke. I don't think this has anything to do with being woke or politics. I think there was just a boring female character. There's nothing wrong with her being a kick-ass character and, being a badass, but, it didn't really do it for me. Lazy episode. So that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And please hit subscribe if you like the show, if you like this content. Trying to get to 1,000 subs before the end of the year. And we'll be doing all kinds of cool stuff. Horror, pop culture, Star Wars stuff. Plenty of Star Wars stuff leading up into The Rise of Skywalker. And, commentaries and movie hangouts and all kinds of cool stuff. So please subscribe, hit the likes, thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment below. And thanks to all my new subs out there. And until next time, guys, stay awesome, stay R-rated. Cheers. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We've got a lot of great content coming for you this year. We've got reviews for movies, comics, and more. And of course, we will always have fan commentaries for the movies you love. Lots of talk about horror and just mainstream pop culture in general. and probably some Star Wars stuff leading up to Rise of Skywalker. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and yeah, become a fan of the channel. Let's hear what you want to see. Leave a comment below, and just let me know what you think. Alright guys, talk to you later.